Good morning and welcome to Inside the Hive for this lovely Friday morning, June the 26th. I'll get it right eventually. And I'm pleased to have with us this morning Gord Carter from BNI Gateway in Mississauga. And Gord is here this morning to speak with us and share his experience of doing one of those life transitions from corporate world into individual business ownership. And I'm just pleased to have that because I do run across a lot of people within the BNI family that have made that transition or are thinking of making the transition or are at early stages of making that transition. So let's do a quick intro for you with regards to Gord.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
So, Gord, you're the founder of, you're welcome. You're the founder of L3 Solutions. And I know you're going to talk about that, but what you do is you help business owners and executives strengthen leadership. And we were just talking about that before we started this morning, improving productivity as well and driving some growth, measurable growth through proven and practical development programs. I love this on your website, by the way. Unlock potential, inspire growth, and achieve success. So the three words there: unlock, inspire, achieve, and then potential growth and success. I just love the way that goes. So why don't you take just a couple of minutes to introduce yourself even more, and then we'll jump into a few questions.
Yeah, sure. I'm Gord Carter. My wife and I actually started our business L3 Solutions in 2015. And the original focus was lifelong learning for people in education and the public sector, because that's where my wife's background was in. I was in corporate, as you mentioned, up until a couple of years ago. So my role in L3 for the first, almost decade that we had it, was support, business development, strategy, right? And then when we moved to Ontario a couple of years ago, we decided that we put the business on hold. We had a young daughter. We wanted to focus on that, and I had a pretty taxing corporate job with responsibilities across North America. And just about 2 years ago, I decided to make a significant change and join L3 full time, and really start focusing on business, on corporate leadership development. So that's kind of the journey that got us here. Um, yeah, that's I think that's the core background. So I've been doing this full time for about a year and a half now.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. We'll jump right in then. Why did you join BNI given your corporate background?
It was all around my network. So when I first started doing this and using the programs, I have my coach myself, and he gave me some advice, which was tap into your current network, but don't be surprised if they're not that engaged or helpful in your new business. And I couldn't really wrap my head around that. I've got 25 years in, multiple cities, multiple industries, kind of all over the place. I figured, no, I've got this really great network. I'll be able to tap into it. But what Frank had told me was 100% correct. They did not see me as a leadership development specialist. They saw me as whatever role I was in when I worked with them in the past. So it became very clear to me quickly that I needed to find a different way to network. And and that was really what encouraged me when I got to BNI, or when I discovered BNI, was I'm able to bring a 25-year network to BNI, but I'm able to tap into a network that gets to meet me and know me as I currently am, not as who I was 15, 20 years ago.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's such a great insight in terms of going from one to the other, but not losing who you were in the process, right? But
Yeah.
positioning yourself as something, I won't say new, but something different in this world that you're in. How did you discover BNI? How did you find
Uh,
BNI?
Chris, before we jump into that one, there's something you just said that sparked one of the things that I've noticed is people grow and develop, and whether it is in business or whether it's in a personal aspect, quite often we get confronted with people that know us really well and they don't really want us to change. So, right, you're trying to do something new, and there's always the doubters, there's always the people, and that's important to understand as you're taking on something new, whatever it is that you're growing and developing. So I didn't realize this when I started this stage of my career, but it's really difficult for some people who've known you for a while to see who you're growing into, or what you're trying to do now, if they've known what you were before.
That's actually good elaboration on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Go off on a tangent there. Well, maybe we may come back to it before we're done today. So back to the question: how did you find BNI? How did you find the outfit?
It was actually an interesting journey. So just before I decided to start this business, I got a call from a BNI chapter in Edmonton, and it was for a reference for somebody who used to report to me in another life when I lived in Alberta. And I didn't know what BNI was, so I assumed it was a reference for a company that he was joining. And when I spoke to the gentleman, the president of the chapter in Edmonton, I was like, "Hey, what is this business? What's the role? The guy who had asked me to be the reference, his name is Chris. So I'm like, Chris didn't tell me much about this. What is it?" And he said, "Well, actually, we're a professional networking group." So I thought this is really interesting. So I put it in my back pocket, thinking maybe I'll look into it down the road. And then I joined the Mississauga Board of Trade right when I launched or relaunched this business in November of 2024. And within 6 months, I had three different people come to approach me about, "Hey, do you know about BNI? I think you'd be a really good fit." And so I visited a number of chapters. And then it was, I think the fourth chapter that I visited is the one that I ended up joining. And really, it just came down to the right fit of people. So I believe a lot in culture and chemistry. You get a group of people together, and you're going to get a different dynamic. And really, the for me anyway, the Gateway chapter was just okay. This is a right fit. These are people I can see myself working with. There was already a lot of trust. People made time to meet with me in between meetings before I'd even joined, and that goes a long way, right? It's like, yeah, you're going to invest a little bit of time to get to know me before I've even signed on.
Gord, you mentioned a couple of things in there, and I have to comment on them. The whole concept of a membership organization that you apply to versus in addition to you looking at the organization and the people in the room that you're looking at to say, hey, is this the kind of culture and the community that I want to be a part of as well? The two come together.
They
And
do.
when that
Yeah.
magic happens, that's when the BNI system really does take off. Okay, enough from me. Um, what was your biggest learning and or mistake that you might have run into when you joined BNI?
Uh, oh, you know what? It's going to sound trite. How to network. So I'm relatively good at meeting people. I enjoy people. I enjoy chatting. When I joined, there's kind of two prongs to this. I led with the tools that I use. So I use a particular set of tools, a particular program that I believe in, right? So the LMI is the system that I use, and I went through an LMI program in 2017, so I'm a big believer in it. That's why I became licensed and why I use it. But I led with that. And I thought it gave me a little bit of authority, a little bit of like, hey, here's what I've done, here's why it's so good. We're 65-year-old organization. We've been in we're operating in 90 countries. And the feedback that I got from my chapter, it was really, really helpful and it was fairly frank, was nobody knows, like, the brand LMI is not really out there. So don't lead with that for the authenticity piece. And number two was don't lead with the vehicle, right? There are very few people that care about the tires or the engine or the steering wheel. Lead with the destination. So when I have that 30 seconds minute when I'm introducing somebody, it's lead with what is it that where I can help somebody go, not how and what the vehicle is that's going to get you there. So I think those are the two biggest ones, and I'm still working on it. I'm trying to refine it, in terms of like, hey, how do I actually communicate my value? Chris, one of the other things, and I'm sure everybody else on the call recognizes this, today there are a lot of people calling themselves coaches. There's a lot of leadership development out there. There's a lot, and it gets really kind of, it's almost like the adults in Peanuts. It's like wah, 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 like it's just in the background. So you've really got to be able to help people see like how you can help them get to where they want to get to, and then afterwards say, hey, here are the tools that I use if there's interest.
Exactly. And in that, it's about what value I'm going to get out of it as a
Yeah.
customer and user, right? And then within the BNI context, the networking context, if you will, it's having the people in the room with you understand how they can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a two-sided to it. So what do you do daily, weekly, or even monthly to keep visible within BNI Gateway, your chapter?
Yeah, the this one's actually a relatively easy one to answer because it's a chunk of what I do. So a lot of it is planning and intentionality. So some of the guys on the call are going to know this one, but I've got a practice I call the first and last 30. So the first 30 minutes of every day and the last 30 minutes of every day. When I'm in a really good groove, that's when I do my planning and my recap. And what it allows me to do is to be intentional about what I am doing every day and every week and where I'm going. So I make sure that I am consistently planning to be part of BNI. So my attendance is pretty spectacular. I think I've missed maybe one, and that was because the sub didn't show up in the year and change that I've been a member. Um, Having a role to play. So I'm not just a member. I'm also part of the education coordination team, right? So that gives me something else to be actively involved in and trying to give back to the chapter. And then I make sure that I have one-to-ones on an ongoing basis. So I think on average, I'm between 2 and 3 one-to-ones a week since I joined. And that just allows me to continue to look for ways to engage and build trust with the other members of my chapter.
Gord, thank you. I think you also gave us a tip that 30 and 30. Is that proprietary or can we borrow that
I
from you?
wish I could TM it. But yeah, no, it is it's a term that I use, it's a practice that I use without getting to, I mean, I don't mind giving away the secret sauce. It's really simple. You make sure your first 30 minutes of every day working, don't jump into work right away. Do your planning. Make sure you know what it is you have to get done that day. Too many of us we start answering email probably before we get to the office because it's just right there on our phone, right? Or we jump right into the first meeting as soon as we get there. And my personal experience and people that I've worked with, when you do that, you lose control of the day, right? You're always reacting to something. Where if you can take that first 30 minutes, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes, but you take that first 30 minutes to plan out your day, then you can determine what are those priorities, what are the things that have to get done.
Mm.
And then the last 30, so before I log off at the end of the day, before I leave the office, I take 30 minutes to go through, okay, what did I accomplish today versus what I planned? What hit my plate that I didn't expect? And what do I need to carry over into future days? So I actually do a little bit of the pre-planning for the next day and the subsequent days at the end. Psychologically, it means I'm not going to bed thinking, what do I have to get done? What's coming up next? You don't wake up in the middle of the night going like, oh gosh, I forgot to do this thing, right? Because you've already kind of capped off the day. So
You know, Tim Hauser just made a comment and he said that's something that Warren Buffett talks about, taking time to
I didn't know
start
that.
for yourself, right? And we had a previous member on a number of visits back, a number of sessions back, who talked about working on the business. That was Matt Tulk from Gorilla down in Stony Creek, Gorilla Property Management. And he talked about leveraging BNI to help him now work on his business. And what you just suggested is a great way to work on the business to start
Yeah.
and finish the day. Rest of the day you're working in it, right? Love it.
Yep.
You may have answered this already, Gore, but I'm going to ask you one more question, and that is, and then I have an extra one for you after this. If you had to start over in a brand new chapter, what would you do in 90 days to set yourself up for success? You've touched a little bit about some of that, but if
Yeah.
you have anything
Yeah, I was gonna
specific, I'd
say
love to hear you more.
they really overlap, don't they? In the first 90 days, I would book as many one-to-ones as humanly possible. So as many as I could get in there. I might prioritize them around center of influence roles. I would definitely want to spend time with the leadership. But really, it would just be building as much trust as fast as possible by spending time with people. I'm old school enough that I truly believe that spending time in the physical presence of somebody else is going to be one of the best ways that you can actually start to get to know somebody and build that trust. Number two is I get involved. So I try and find whatever role I could be part of. Obviously, for me, being an education coordinator fits with what I do. But there are so many roles that you can get involved with in any chapter. So and then I think the third thing in that first, and this would come out of the one-to-ones, but I would actively look for where I can add value back to the other members. Like the one of the things, and we didn't touch on this, Chris, but one of the things that early on really resonated with me is the concept of giver's gain. Without having that term prior to BNI, it is really how I live my life. And part of the reason I got into the business that I'm in now is because I want to help people. I want to add value. And so the ability to do that and as fast as possible, um, I think those would be the three things I would do in the first kind of 90 days.
Appreciate that. Coming back to the question in a minute, but a couple of sessions back, we had Andrew Costa from Burlington on, and he had this line that I just love so much. It works from the giver's gain concept, but his line was giving mindset. When you
Ooh, I
come
like
into a
that.
room with a giving mindset in any context, you've
Yeah.
already set yourself up to want to help. And I find that fascinating. And then, in those days, like a week I've had, where there's new stuff every day, and you're thinking about how you can, from a giving mindset perspective, it gets you from
Yeah.
wanting to end the day early today on Friday. So my
Chris, before
question
you
to you
jump,
is,
so sorry,
I had a
before you jump
question.
on
No,
that,
go
what you
ahead.
just
All
said
right,
sparked
cool,
two
cool.
things that I want to share.
Good.
One is, and I learned this from a colleague, oh God, 20 years ago. If you approach everybody in your life as a client,
Huh.
right? So that standpoint of doesn't matter if they're a direct report, doesn't matter if they're a vendor, doesn't matter if they're your boss. Like if you approach everybody from the standpoint of a client, which is, how do I help? How do I support? How do I, right? It allows you to give a lot back and you get more in return, right? Like there's something interesting about that, which feeds into an actual genuine servant leadership mindset. The other thing, and it was the same colleague, Anne Marie, who gave me this gem as well, which is always assume the best. So as you're interacting with somebody, if you can do it, and I'm not the best at it, my wife and I try to keep it as our like number one rule in the household is assume the best. So if one of us is a little bit snappy with the other, we try to remember that that she doesn't mean to be snappy or he doesn't mean to be snappy. It's just, if we can assume the best, we're more likely to react back to each other in a kind way that will diffuse a potential argument. And the times that we remember that and we live that way, it's fantastic. The times that we don't, it's a little bit more rocky. But I think both of those are fit in with what you just mentioned in terms of the giver's mindset.
And Gord, if I'm not mistaken, you and your wife work together in
We do, yes,
this business. So you're life partners and business
and
partners as
business
well. And
partners.
I'm not even
Yeah.
going to go down that road. We'll leave that one alone. What I wanted to know was, what does L3 Solutions stand for? I've
Ooh,
been on the website, but tell us real quickly what that means. And if you put it in that perspective of I'm a client now, then I
yeah.
think you'll be able to explain it for me. So thank you.
Yes.
Please.
So L3 stands for lifelong learning. It's that simple. So we when we were trying to figure out the name when we launched the business, we really did some deep sort of soul searching on why are we doing this? What do we want to do? Where are we going with it? And really what it comes down to is that we are both, my wife and I, lifelong learners. I truly do believe that if you are not continuing to grow, then you're stagnating and more likely atrophying. And I think you can see that just in like the natural world. You're either growing or you're decaying, right? In terms of not humans, but just in terms of the way nature works. And it resonated with both of us. But having lifelong learning solutions seemed a little bit of a long company name, so we played with L3.
Okay. Of course, that stands for something that we do in BNI, right?
Yes,
Lifelong
it
learning.
is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just making sure
I
that
think Carl might get a kick out of this, but every time I get chosen to pick the weekly value, which value do you
yes.
think I pick?
I think I know the answer to that question, so we're not even going to take a bet. Gord, thank you so much. We are at about time, but I do want to see if anybody has any questions for you this morning. We have a few minutes, so if anybody wants to talk with Gord directly, please unmute and just jump in. We'll take a few minutes to see if there's any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Carl.
Gord, I'm curious to know what like how these programs kind of like you offer a series of different programs. How do you move people kind of from one end to the other in terms of effective leadership?
That is a fantastic question, and it's going to take two answers. So, the first and foremost, if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, when I am meeting somebody, I go through a needs assessment process. So before I'm going to recommend a particular program or a particular avenue of development, I need to understand what they want to accomplish, where they currently are, what challenges they're facing. It's a 30 to 60 minute, I call it a needs assessment, but it's basically an interview to understand where they are and where they would like to be. And then it's also an opportunity for them to interview me. So I don't phrase it that way, but I'm like, look, if you're going to work with somebody who's going to coach you, you got to make sure that there's somebody that you can work with. So, so that's the first. From there, I will determine and I'll make a recommendation back on, so I've got a program that's all around team dynamics. So if somebody's struggling with, getting alignment or they've got different silos within the business, that might be the best program to start with, right? Because it gets a chance to pull everybody into room to work through communication and culture. The second part to the question or to the answer, Carl, is that there's a an overall or an overarching four program concept called the total leader. And it starts with personal productivity, personal leadership, motivational leadership, and strategic leadership. Those are four different programs. But each of the formal programs, the shortest one I have is 2 months. Right. So the effective personal productivity program it's about 5 months. It's 20 weeks. We meet bi-weekly. So it's not a massive time commitment in terms of, hey, you got to be in a classroom every day or you got to take a bunch of time off work. But there is a lot of time invested in going through the program. And then the magic comes in that you got to apply it to your business. So there's no point in learning a bunch of stuff and getting a bunch of knowledge if you don't apply it. So the programs are all designed for actual real world application.
Hmm. Great answer. Great question.
Yeah, thanks
Anybody
for the
else have a
question, Carl.
question? Anybody else have a question for Gord
Yes,
this morning?
I have a quick one for Gord too. Gord, yeah, I know it's not a massive commitment, but to the people who are like behind the eight ball and they're really like struggling and stressed in that state that could really use your service. Do you have
Yeah.
any tips, free advice for people to sort of get to a place where they can handle L3?
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you three tips. The first is get really clear on what your goals are. Get really, really clear. So the people, generally speaking, the people that get really, really overwhelmed, they're behind the eight ball. It's because they have so many things going on. And more often than not, they're too close to the tree. They can't see the forest, to use that metaphor. So actually carving out some time to get really clear on what it is you want, and not just for your work, but for life. Like what do you actually value? What matters to you as a person? The second is make time every single day for planning. It is the simplest and fastest and easiest way to take control of your day. It's also the hardest one for most people who are owners, operators, and who are used to just being busy. And our current culture teaches us busyness is the sign of productivity, which it's not, but that's what it teaches us, right? All of the apps, all of the notifications, all of the hacks that you get all over the place. So those are the top two that I would recommend, right? The third, and this is maybe counterintuitive because I'd love to work with them, but if somebody is so busy that they can't carve out that time to get a coach of some sort to help them, go and get Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Like it is again, it's not one of my programs, it's not, but
Can
core
you put
fundamentally,
that in the chat? 7 habits for what's that?
highly effective people.
Okay.
So now it'll be enough of a good read that you go, oh, those are great ideas. The challenge is most people can't apply them without having some sort of external accountability. So make sure if you're going to do that, or if you're going to suggest it to anybody, that they have an accountability partner who will be like, okay, so what are you doing with all this information? I know a ton of people that they listen to the Diary of a CEO and Modern Wisdom and all these great podcasts. And right after it, they'll have all these great ideas. 2 weeks later, you'll ask them what they learned from, the podcast. They'll be like, oh man, I remember it was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you for that question, Rafi. I am going to thank you all for being here again this morning, and thank you, Gord, for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thanks for having
Um,
me.
You're welcome. The next episode of Inside the Hive is Friday, July the 31st. And I'll be sending out an email prior to that to let you know who is on. I do have a very special speaker coming for that one as well, but don't want to take away from the fact that we've had an excellent presentation this morning from you, Gord. So thank you very much. And we will see you all again next time.